I'm sitting here with Johvonna Murray-Bradshaw, a Toronto native from an immigrant Caribbean background with roots in Guyana and Jamaica. She is a driven leader, humanitarian, and engineer. Armed with a Bachelor's of Applied Science in Mechatronics Engineering and a Certificate of Global Experience from the University of Waterloo, as well as a Certificate of Humanitarian Water Engineering from York University. Johvonna has honed her skills in electromechanical design and project management through hands-on experiences at leading tech companies worldwide. With a focus on enhancing human livelihood through technological solutions, Johvonna's recent achievements include spearheading a last-mile energy distribution project in Tanzania and Nigeria, serving as a senior technical project manager in Tesla's battery cell department, consulting on mechatronics design for smart city infrastructure in New York, and creating an autonomous beach cleaning device. Beyond her professional endeavors, Johvonna is an avid sports enthusiast, engaging in volleyball and tennis, and harbors a passion for robotics, elephants, and fostering positive connections with people from diverse backgrounds. Hey, hey. Amazing work. I'm so excited. In hearing about a lot of the things that you have had your hands in, I just thought this story and your story would be so important for other young girls to hear about. We know right now that a lot of our young girls are struggling to kind of figure out, is science for me? Is engineering for me? Is math for me? So I think hearing your story today will, I feel, definitely inspire some of our young people in definitely taking on that role of getting into engineering, science, technology, math, and even figuring out a way to incorporate the creative part, which I feel like you've done. Like you've literally done STEAM, right? Science, technology, engineering, art, and math. So we're excited to have you. Yay. Thank you for taking the time out.
And thank you for the intro.
And we just have a few questions that we're going to get started with. But before we do, tell us more about yourself versus, the bio. Like, what else am I missing? What's a day like? What does Johvonna's day look like?
Yeah. You got it pretty bang on. So yeah, I'm a leader, I'm a humanitarian and an engineer. And humanitarian both in the local context here in Toronto, where I'm born and raised, where I do a lot of social impact work with youth and sharing stories like this to help inspire the next generation coming up. And then also in a global context, I love to explore and also take the things I'm working on and help the global atmosphere as well. And so day to day, what I'm trying to do is take those three passions of mine and combine them into projects that I can make really meaningful and impactful technical solutions to really hard problems in our world.
I love it.
Right now, I'm focused in the energy industry, which is some of those projects you mentioned with last mile energy distribution or battery creation at Tesla. And I also have worked on an autonomous beach cleaning device and smart city infrastructure as well. So it's taking my passions and figuring out how I can use them to help people. And outside of that, I also try to have a balanced life. So to your point, I work on a lot of mindfulness where I spend my mornings meditating and setting intention and having some gratitude for the day. And then in the evenings, I love to connect with my family and friends. That really energizes me. And so I spend a lot of time with people that I love very much. So that's kind of the full picture of what a day looks like for me, and a lot of project management for those projects that I mentioned.
Awesome. Hear that, everybody? Project management. I would have to say then, as a follow-up, what type of skills do you feel that you have with regards to project management? Like if someone were to say, I don't mind doing project management, what was it that you felt kind of led you into being able to take over, and being able to manage those projects? Because it's one thing for
Mhm.
you to have the skill of an engineer and a scientist, but to be able to manage the projects, what
Mhm,
skills do you
mhm.
think you just want to Maybe one or two that you would have.
Yeah, the biggest one that comes to mind is communication.
Okay.
So project management is all about taking a group of people who are all working on different things and speak different languages because they have different expertise, and communicating a common goal in a way that everyone can understand, everybody agrees on, and everybody can work towards.
I
And
love
so
it.
the really key skill that sounds so simple, but is so important.
Thank you so much. One of your talents includes taking breathtaking pictures. Give us the most memorable background story to one of those pictures.
Yeah, absolutely. So the one that I shared with you is a breathtaking picture that, makes me emotional just looking at it because it was from a really impactful time in my life. And it's the sun rising on top of clouds on top of Mount Huangshan, which is a mountain that I had climbed back in 2015 when that picture was taken.
Wow.
Mount Huangshan is this massive mountain in the province of Anhui, China. And
Mhm.
at the time, I was living and working in China for a co-op program that I did through the University of Waterloo. So I was studying engineering at the time, and I decided to do an international co-op experience where I was working in an orthopedic institute in Suzhou University. And I got to design my first product there, where I got to 3D print a medical diagnostic device.
Oh,
But I
yeah.
also traveled by myself to a brand new country where I didn't know anything. I didn't speak the language. It was completely foreign. I went with about a group of 10 to 15 people, which were other students from my school. And we all were kind of figuring out and finding our way there together. But I learned so much from that experience, and it really shaped the rest of my academic career and even my professional career and life. I learned how to speak another language, how to navigate a foreign context and learn intercultural skills, how to communicate with someone who doesn't necessarily have the same background as you,
Mhm.
how to explore and falling in love with exploring, our planet. And as I said, it was my first time also designing a new product. But most importantly, I learned a lot about myself.
Mm.
When you're put outside of your comfort zone and forced to operate without having the comfort of the people and the things you're forced to grow. And I grew a lot during that experience when I was living in China.
Love it.
And so while we were there living and working, we took some time off to explore, and we decided to climb that massive mountain. It was a 3-day hike where we stopped for 2 nights along the way, but every night we had our backpacks on. We're climbing up, thousands of steps, and it was really hard. And by the time we got to the top 3 days later, we were all busted, but we woke up at 7 a.m. to get to the top, the peak of the mountain.
Wow.
And when we did, we got there before the sun had risen. And it was just the most breathtaking thing I had ever seen. And so that's what that picture is from. It's
Hmm.
really meaningful to me because it just represents a time of pure, growth outside of my comfort zone in my life. But it's something that I still try to hang on to and do in my day to day now.
And don't worry, everyone. I know you're probably wondering, can we see the picture? It's coming. You'll see the picture soon. But I just wanted everyone to just hear about it first and just kind of imagine, that idea of climbing a mountain, being there when the sun rises, just when you take it all in mentally, it's breathtaking in itself, just hearing
Mhm.
the story. Um, I have to say, as I'm listening to you talk about your adventure, I call it an adventure because really, leaving home, going somewhere by yourself, not knowing the language.
Mhm.
Again, what would you share with our young people listening in terms of that fear, right? Because many people don't do certain things because of that fear, right?
Mhm.
Whether it's
Mhm.
that fear of, I don't know the language, I haven't left my parents before, I
Mhm.
don't have any friends. What should I do? Like, what gave you the confidence and what gave you that feeling, that inspiration to really to make that move?
Yeah, that's an incredible question because so many times in life we're scared by things we just or that are unfamiliar, we just haven't done before. And honestly, my advice would be to do it. Do it scared and do it anyway. because you just have to do that thing, take that first step, and eventually it's going to feel a little bit more comfortable and you're going to figure it out. But the first step is trying and giving yourself really the confidence to try it, even if you don't have it all figured out, to just get it started, because that's how everyone that does seem to have it figured out, they had to take that first same step as well. So do it and do it scared. Do it anyway.
Yes, I love it. And, I listened to a motivational speaker, Eddie Pinero, and he always talks about that, the fact that, it's just one step and then another and then another. It's
Yeah.
just like with walking.
Mm-hmm.
When you're walking, you were walking, but your walking changed because you were climbing up a mountain. So,
Yeah.
when you think about the fact that we do things without even realizing that we're actually doing some of the things that we're afraid of, it's
Yeah,
just that the
absolutely.
context changes a bit, right? So
Mm-hmm.
if we sometimes look at it in that, frame of mind, then maybe that too can help us to overcome that fear and to really get into something that the fear, get into something that is unknown, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because we understand it is hard. But yeah, that's awesome. Being in China, how long were you in China for?
It was a semester, so it was
Oh,
4 months.
okay, so not too long, but
Mhm.
that's a long time to be somewhere.
Yeah, it was a long time. And I was 19. I had no idea what went through my mind. I knew nothing, but did it scared.
It worked out. It worked out.
Mhm.
All right. As a Black female engineer, what were some of the key early childhood experiences that you believe led you on the path to get to where you are now?
Mm. Yeah, that's a good question. For me, since I was young, I had always loved science for some reason. That's something that has just been wavering for me. I think when I was young, I remember seeing scientists in like lab coats with beakers with liquids of different potions pouring stuff, and I just thought that looked so dope and so cool, and I wanted to do that. So that had always been a theme in my life. I didn't know where it was going to take it. And one thing I had to reflect on as I got older was where did, the love for engineering and making things come from? And I have to say a huge influence in my early childhood life was my dad. My
Mm,
dad is incredible and he is a self-taught engineer and he was always around the house building something or fixing something or tinkering with something in the garage. And so from a young age, I got to see him actually make things and do things with his hand and had that exposure. And I remember specifically being in like probably grade 4, grade 5. And me and one of my best friends to this day, we had this science project where we were turning a pizza box into a face and we had to put some electronics in it to get it to move or to light up.
okay.
And so we drew a face, we put some hair on it, and we put 2 LEDs to be the eyes. And inside the pizza box, we had some batteries and wires to connect it to turn the eyes on. And we were working at it and working at it. And for the life of the two of us, we could not connect these lights and get the lights to come on. And it was like so simple. And my dad watched us struggle all day. And so we kind of gave up. We went to bed. We were going to tackle it in the morning. When we woke up in the morning, my dad had connected it all for us and got it to work perfectly.
Oh,
We were like, what the heck? How did this happen? He's a genius. How did he do this? And he sat us down and he broke it down to us, positives and negatives, and how to connect things in series and parallel. And I remember at that moment just recognizing that if you work really hard, if you don't figure it out right away, but if you work really hard at something and keep trying, you can create things that are really incredible. And
yeah.
so I definitely didn't realize it at that time, but being exposed to my dad really helped me see that that was possible. And, now even in some of the social impact work that I do, I realize how important that is. Last year I ran and introduced a Girl to Engineering Day event
Hmm.
at Tesla
Yes.
Toronto, where we invited 30 schoolgirls to come to our manufacturing facility and just see some of the engineering work that we do. And one of the programs we did is we did just that. We had them create a mini electric motor with some wire and batteries. And at the end, when all the girls created their electric motors, I had asked if they had ever built or created anything before with their hands. And these girls were older than I was. They were probably in grade 7 and 8. And a lot of them, it was their very first time building or making anything with
Wow.
their hands. And so I realized that that was a privilege I had to see my dad and visualize that that was possible. Because as women, as young girls, we're often not asked to come help change the light bulb or come
Yeah.
help fix something around the house. And
Mhm.
so I think that exposure, now that I'm older, I realized really had an impact to me to just understand that I can make things.
Yes.
And then I would say a little bit furthermore to that, to actually my path to getting into engineering specifically,
Mhm.
once I realized I wanted to make things, as I mentioned, I come from a Caribbean background. My mom is Jamaican and my dad
Yay.
is born in Guyana. And so growing up, I spent a decent amount of time going back to Jamaica to see family. And I recognized at a very young age, again, I had that perspective that not everybody in the world was living the same way I was living in Toronto. There were disparities between quality of life and access to things. And so once I realized I could make things, I think that really showed me with seeing how my family was living that I wanted to make things to help people live in a better way and help everybody have a high quality of life. So those two very early, very subconscious experiences definitely set me on that track to engineering in the future.
I love it. I love it. And the Introduce a Girl to Engineering Day at Tesla. Did they continue it? I know it happened last year. Did they continue that
Yeah,
initiative?
it's funny. It's actually been done today. Mhm.
Oh, that's
I will be the second
awesome. Well,
one.
that's good. That's awesome. And how were I know you said there were 30 girls chosen. Were they
Mhm.
chosen, did they actually submit a interest, like
Mm.
a request for interest, or was it, how were they chosen?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, it was girls that had expressed interest in STEM and science or curious and wanting to get into it.
Okay.
So teachers had picked those 30 students between grades 6 to 8.
Hmm.
And then, yeah, they came to the facility and I led a day, an event where we just got to show them as much as we could with our engineering um, technology and machinery, show them different engineers that explained their experience to them on a panel, and then actually a hands-on period where they got to build
Love it.
stuff. So
That's
it
so
was a great
awesome.
day.
And that's another piece of some of my work is trying to get experiences such as that to more of our young girls, right? Because
Hmm.
the fact that, they said to you that they've never built anything before, it
Hmm.
makes you really think, what's going on? Like how? But, as an educator, I know how, right? We're not
Hmm.
privileged. We don't have, while people may think, oh, well, you're teachers, you have all you need. Unfortunately, we are not provided with the resources that many of our young people do need
Hmm.
to truly get into opportunities like thinking about engineering, thinking about science, and
Yeah,
technology. There's just not the time. There aren't the
absolutely.
resources, there isn't the time. And it's like opportunities like this that are so amazing, but of course it's limited, right? Because let's be real, they can't do it every day, right?
Hmm.
It's once a year. It's for 30 girls versus how many, girls do we have out there? So, I'm hoping that, in hearing this, some organization hears it and decides that they would like to do some work. Hello, to help our young girls get,
I'm out.
right? To
Yeah,
get to do some more engineering and doing some more hands-on work.
yeah,
Awesome.
absolutely.
I have to talk about your Tesla, talk more about Tesla since we're on that topic. So you're an innovator for the environment, among many things. And I know you kind of touched on this, but how else did your early childhood experiences influence your academic achievement and now
Mhm.
your success in the workforce? Because I know it's one thing for you to have the passion and the like for you to, be where you were in,
Mhm.
grade 4, your dad was there. But what about the academic achievement piece? Like how, because that's another challenge that many of our young girls face is that, well, I really love this, but my grades are not the best. I
Mhm.
really love this, but how do I get my grades up there? Or, just thinking about the balance involved.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, you know what? For me, it was instilled at a very, very young age by my family.
Nice.
From I was young, and again, these memories go back to like kindergarten and grade one. I was always told that school comes first and
Mm.
that school was the priority. I remember coming home from school and throwing down my bag and wanting to go play with toys or watch a movie. And again, my dad would always say things like, when the schoolwork is done, then we can have fun. And I
Oh.
knew that that meant that I had to get my schoolwork or my assignments and homeworks done first, and then we could play, and then we could do the fun
Mm.
stuff. So that really just set the priority, hearing stuff like that every single day. It was instilled in me at a very, very young age. And there's two quotes that my grandpa also used to instill in me that have really stuck with me to this day. One is by Henry Longfellow, and it says that heights of great men and women,
Yeah.
reached and kept, were not attained by sudden flight, but they, while their companions slept, were toiling upwards through the night.
Mm.
And, to this day, my grandpa will start that quote and look at me to finish it. And I know what he's saying is it's time to go work hard for the thing you want to get, the success you want to achieve. Those great heights come with really hard work and dedication. Not many things in our life are actually chance. Chance is us working hard to put ourselves in the best, statistical spot to have a
Mm.
positive outcome. And so things like that just made me realize that I was going to have to work hard to be successful in school, and also that school came before the fun and activities in life. And so that was put really early into my head. So by the time that I got into, high school, my family didn't have to ask me to do my homework or tell me
Mm.
to go finish my project. I was coming to them to tell them that something was done or that I was bummed I didn't get to do as much as I wanted to do because
Right.
it was just instilled at such a young age. And so it followed with me to academia, and then even more so to my work at Tesla and my work and my professional career now. um, I still have that same mentality. And, the second quote my grandpa would always say was, shoot for the moon. And even if you miss, you will land among the stars. And so just shooting for greatness and in both life and career is something that has always really been a theme for me.
Love it. That's so beautiful. And I love that your grandpa had such an impact on you because, again, when we're thinking of our early childhood experiences, we talk about the village that raises us, right?
Hmm.
And the fact that, yes, your mom and dad instilled this love and this greatness for academics and for, for doing well in school. But then your granddad was able to just enforce it, like, you know what I mean? To really
Yeah.
just kind of to seal it, right? To say, you know what, like mom and dad are saying it, now my grandpa's saying it, so it must be true, right?
Yeah.
Because, sometimes it's one of those ones where you're like, oh yeah, mom, dad, but then when your
Hmm.
grandpa says it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely makes a difference. So
Yeah, absolutely.
I love it. And I wanted to kind of touch on then when you were at Tesla you were working on the batteries. Can you
Mhm.
tell us a little bit about that project? Just a little bit about that project?
Yeah, absolutely. So there I was, a senior technical project manager. And what I was actually working on was the big industrial manufacturing machine that makes the batteries that goes into the cars. It's a
Okay.
couple steps from the actual car itself,
Hmm.
but these big autonomous devices are basically big robots. And they do different steps to assemble and make the battery into what it is when it's inside of the car, these individual battery cells. But each one of those pieces of equipment that get put together to make a whole assembly line has its own team of mechanical designers, control software designers, electrical designers, manufacturing teams, design teams. There's so much that goes into just one piece of equipment. And so I was managing several pieces of equipment on this line and the full life cycle from design to testing, validating, and actually shipping to from Toronto, where we were building them, to
Mm.
Tesla's gigafactories around the world. So
Wow.
ones that were in Fremont, California, Texas, and even Berlin. So it was really cool to design something here and then see it go live out, where it will make batteries for the end of time.
And also save the company money because from what I understand, it was like almost $2,000 a week that you were
Mhm.
saving them. So, all right, your listeners, again, that sometimes our work isn't just about helping. Well, it is helping people, even if it is financially, right? Because
Mhm.
if you can save people money, that's a way to help others as well. So yeah, I love it. All right. I know you've spoken a little bit about what your parents have done, but in particular, when you're thinking about the role that your parents played in shaping your childhood experiences, tell me
Mhm.
more about your parents and, growing up.
Yeah, that's such a great question. And, the first thing that comes to mind when you say that is just everything. Like my parents were my everything. I was the only child at home, so I was lucky to have such a close relationship with them, both of them, my mom and my dad. And, they were my comfort. They were my teachers by what was said to me and also by example. They were
Mm,
my friends, the people I wanted to come home and play with and do stuff with and spend time with as well. They were also giving me discipline as well, direction, and my caregivers and providers. So my parents were my everything growing up. They really shaped my entire childhood, and that's really lucky. I know not everyone is fortunate enough to have parents that are around or involved, and I was just really lucky to have two great people that to this day are two of my biggest role models.
yeah, I love it. Did they give you the travel itch? Are they the ones who introduced you to the travel? Because I mean, you've gone to China. You
Mhm.
were also in where? I'm sorry, where else were you? You also went to.
Yeah, when I was in university, after I did that first China trip where I took that picture, I caught the travel bug. So
Mm,
I ended up going on to do another co-op in Tokyo, Japan, where I worked at a robotics
oh, that's
startup.
it, Japan.
I
Okay.
did exchange in Singapore.
Oh,
And then I also learned a little bit of Mandarin when I got back to school, just to kind of continue the language development there, and have loved to explore and learn new cultures and meet people from all different backgrounds now in my professional career as
yeah.
well. But the travel bug itself, honestly, I think I gave my parents. So after I
Oh,
went to China and started to explore Asia quite a bit, they then actually ended up backpacking Southeast Asia together, and they also fell in love with that part of the world. So
mm.
I think I maybe gave it to them, but I think probably got it from my grandparents. My grandparents again were very well traveled and would tell me their stories from around the world, or we had family in the US and in the UK that we would talk to and go see. So I had the perspective that the world was bigger than where I was growing up from a really young age. And I think that's really sad.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing about the role that your parents have played in shaping your early childhood experiences. I think it's important for our young people to understand that, you know, um, whether you have your biological parents, whether you have your grandparents, whatever, whoever your caregiver is, everyone's just
Mhm.
doing the best that they can with what they've got, right? So
Mhm.
it's awesome. And yes, you're right. You're extremely privileged and blessed to be able to have two parents who are, involved and were there for you the way they were. So that's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. All right. So a question that I like to ask, and I know it's, one of those questions that sometimes people are, what kind of question is this? But here it goes. Tell us about a time when you either got mad at your parents for making a decision that impacted your life. So whether it was socially, financially, mentally, emotionally, or a time when you were super confused about why they were saying what they were saying or doing um, when you were young. So this happened when you're young, but then when you got older and wiser, you realized and appreciated the advice that was given to you at the time and the decision that they had made to say what they had said to you.
Mhm. That's such a good question, honestly, Nicole. And so many times we look back and we're like, we thought our parents were crazy back then, but then it all pieces it together when you're older. But for me, I remember a specific time when I was in middle school, maybe grade 7 or 8, And I just started hanging out with the wrong group of people. I was getting into a little bit of trouble at school. And I got to the point that the school let my parents know kind of what was going on.
Mm.
And I definitely got in trouble. I'm pretty sure I was like grounded and got my phone taken away or something for about a week or something like that. But on top of that, what happened, and I'm pretty sure this came from my mom, part of my punishment was that I had to get involved in a bunch of extracurricular activities.
Oh.
Outside of school, I got enrolled in violin lessons and art class and science camp and Kumon. And all of a sudden, I was so busy. And it didn't make sense to me that this was part of like the punishment for what I was doing. And all I knew that I was in middle school and I was booked and busy with so many different extracurriculars that I had never even done or tried before. And looking back, I think what my mom was trying to do was, thinking that I was too idle. I had too much spare time that I was
Mm.
getting into the wrong things and just focusing on things that didn't really matter. And so using my spare time to actually grow and try new skills and do new things was really, really important back then and definitely helped set me back on the right track. And, that stuck with me to this day because, I'm a very multifaceted person now, whether it's, engineering or it's arts and music, I have different sides of me that I got to explore at a young age through those extracurriculars. And even, when I went on to high school and university, it was always important to me to join sports teams, to, have an instrument that
Mm.
I was learning or appreciate different things. And so it's something that I am really grateful for that you did back then. And it was really
Yeah.
to this day. And I definitely didn't understand it back then, but now I'm so grateful.
Awesome. That's so awesome. And I think it does take time for people to truly recognize the impact, right? And that, at the time, it may not make sense, but there is, a method to the madness, what we like to say, right? Is that some parents, and sometimes it doesn't always work out. There are times where your parents say or do things that you come back and you look back and you're like, Mom, Dad, really? And then they can even say, okay, yeah, you're right. Yeah, maybe we shouldn't have done it that way. I mean, but thankfully, in this instance, it did work out. And I think I love that you said that because I want our young people to understand and know that extracurriculars are a great way and it is a great avenue for many of us to go down because
Hmm.
not only are you learning more about yourself and exploring new things that you would not have normally explored, but
Hmm.
you truly are getting a taste of what else is out there, right? Because had you not gone to Kumon, you wouldn't maybe have been more, involved in math. Maybe if you hadn't taken the violin, you wouldn't have thought about the music,
Hmm.
so it is important for us to do that. And then also the other piece is the people that you meet in those classes, right? They
Yeah.
turn out to be friends that later on in life may perhaps be part of your story, be part of your journey in
Hmm.
terms of, networking, right? I always tell people that many of my opportunities have come because I volunteered with organizations. And when I volunteered with these organizations, because they saw my work in what I did through volunteering, I was
Hmm.
able to get paid opportunities because of it, right? So, I think that's the piece that many of us and young people for sure, like, I don't want to go to soccer. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that because I want to hang out with my friends. Not realizing that, listen here, man, when your friends are running up and down and things are not going properly for them, like you have to remind yourself of where you are and where you're going to be and what it
Hmm.
is that we want for you as parents, right? What we want for you. So I love it.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for sharing that.
No
They're probably
problem.
going to be like, what? We didn't do it for that. We just put you in, like, but I'm sure they know. I'm sure they know. All
Yeah.
right. Talk to me. I love this idea, the autonomous beach cleaning device. I kind of want to hear, I know you were the project manager. You had to present in front of that many people. I want to hear that experience. Like, how was that for you? But just, how did that whole thing get started? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So that project was actually the capstone of my mechatronics engineering degree at the University of Waterloo. So in your very last year of that program, you have to take everything you learned and build something that showcases kind of the cornerstone of your education. And so I had three peers that I worked together with to make that happen. And we sat down and thought about all these ideas about common problems we all felt, the things we wanted to solve. And all of us were pretty well traveled, and we thought about the times we'd gone to beaches and times we'd gone on vacation where the beach is just filled with garbage and it's actually not that great, and it takes away from the experience that you have as a tourist. And so we decided to set out on creating some type of system that could remove garbage from the beaches. We started thinking about how to do that in water, and then we are like, that's pretty hard to make,
Yeah.
like
Okay.
water cleaning robots. So we said, okay, we'll stick on land, and we created a whole autonomous machine that basically scouts up and down any public beach that has sand and sifts through the sand and basically lets the sand fall back down to the beach, but picks up anything that is bigger than a rock, so typically garbage, and collects it into a waste disposal bin that can then be disposed properly. And so there was a lot of system design in that. There was a lot of mechanical design, software writing, and that was when I had discovered that my, real strength in an engineering team came from organization, planning, communication, and keeping all four of us aligned. And so it was actually my first time doing project management was before I graduated. And so I managed that project
Nice.
to build something that worked in the short 8 months that we had. And we were still students, so it was so fun to just try something and be able to make a product and just test it out. And we had a lot of fun kind of learning while we were building and then making something that really worked in the end. So it was a good experience, and we still think about it to this day.
Yeah, awesome.
And then with the speech there, so we also ended up going to some entrepreneurship um, competitions that we were pitching this device in to help get funding. And so I was the one that was nominated to do that speech on behalf of the whole team for some reason, and was up on stage doing like a 90-second pitch for what our device did, what was the value proposition, what was the market we were targeting, and going to more business side of the engineering project. And I remember it was nerve-wracking being up there in front of your peers and judges and being asked all these questions about how your product could fail and what could go wrong. But it also taught us to like do our research and have a really good idea that was fail-proof and answer tough questions when you're trying to make something come to light. So yeah, it was a great experience as well, pitching and competing in those competitions.
I saw the video, girl. You looked very confident. I was like, okay, look at you go for your 90 seconds. I was like, oh my. And then when I looked at the crowd, I was like, oh my gosh, that's a lot of people. Like that's a lot of people, and then on top of it, I was like, her team didn't even come on the stage. Because I was like, they should have at least came and stood with you on the stage. But I get it, but it's one of those ones. But yeah, I love it. And of course, for me, with us having shared Jamaican background, I was thinking, I think we need to start calling Jamaica's beaches and the hotels and start to make them invest in your autonomous beach
Yeah,
cleaning
yeah,
device
yeah.
because I feel like even if we were to have it, on the beaches and just have one person kind of monitor it. So if they need
Mhm.
monitored, I think it'd be a good way to, create jobs, obviously, and then obviously like keep the beaches clean. So
Yeah,
anyone out
absolutely.
there is listening, hello, we need that funding to get that out there, right?
Let
So
us know. Yeah, we'll bring it back. Bring the
that would be
project
great.
back.
That would be great. All right, before I move on to the next question, a couple more questions and we're almost done. I have to ask when you talked about this, when you're talking about creating the robot, there was so much involved. So it
Mhm.
starts obviously with your idea, then you got to figure out the pieces. For me and the idea for this show, when we're thinking about how to encourage our young girls, how to encourage our young people with regards to engineering and technology. What would you suggest is the best way for our young people to get into coding? Like, what do you feel would be the easiest way to kind of introduce coding to our young people?
Yeah, that's a great question. And when I think back to how I was introduced, again, I was so lucky that the school that I went to here in Toronto, which was Runnymede Collegiate Institute, had a master's program of math, science, and technology. And so there was a lot of effort into making curriculum around basically engineering, math, and technology. And then also they started to teach us coding when I was in about grade 9. And so I got exposed that way. But if you don't have that at your school, because I know not all schools have that as yet, I think we're getting there almost. There's so many online courses that are so easy to do. There's so many online programs that teach you how to code, how to write, if statements and statements, and the basic kind of foundational blocks that make up a program.
Oh,
And that
cool.
can be done easily on the computer, can be done at home, and it's something that can also be done at your own pace.
Okay.
And so if you don't have an opportunity in school, I would say try to find some of these courses that have quick 20, 30-minute lessons and do it bit by bit.
Okay.
Because by the time you get into university, what I noticed was that so many people were actually very advanced at coding.
Mm.
When I was in my first year of engineering, there were some people who had never coded before and people that had made apps and games before. So there was such a disparity in the experience. But the people that were advanced in engineering, they went so much farther because they were just so ahead.
Okay.
And the way our future is going, everything is mechatronic. Everything has a software control program. And so, the future is code and it is software. And so the earlier the better, I would say that students can learn that thing. And if you're not exposed to it, I would say take it into your own hands and find some free courses online that teach that.
Okay, I love it. I'm so excited. I'm so excited to even do some myself because I mean it's interesting. I mean, I don't need to take it up for myself per se, but at least as an educator, for me to have the basic understanding to teach our young people, I think it's
Mhm,
important, right? So even with what you're saying now, it kind of makes me think, you know what? This is a good thing for educators to hear about, right? For them
mhm,
to do as well, because I think sometimes with educators, where I'm guilty of it too, we fear teaching something that we're not comfortable with, right?
mhm,
So if we're not familiar with it or comfortable enough, we kind of steer away from it, which
mhm.
is a disservice, obviously, to our young people because just because I'm not comfortable doesn't mean that the children are going to be uncomfortable, right? So it's up
Right.
to me to create a space where, they can actually explore it in a way that they can learn from it. And I'm there to, just kind of nurture and guide and facilitate, right? So
Mhm, mhm,
yeah, I love it. Thank you so much for that. That was great. All right. So what would you say? Let's close it up perfectly right now. What would you say to a young person who is trying to figure it out? So they're trying to figure things out, their gift, their talent, their skill, but they
mhm.
just can't seem to find it.
Mm, that's a big one because I think so many people go through that. I think we're socialized a little bit to think that one day you're just gonna have an epiphany and you're gonna figure your whole life out. And the truth is it never goes like that
Mm.
for anybody. So if anyone is out there struggling, trying to find their gift and they just can't get it yet, I have a couple of pieces of advice, but the first and most important is do not stop.
Mm.
Do not stop pushing to find what that thing is. We're all put on this planet to find the gift within ourselves and make a mark on the world with the time that we have. And everyone has their own unique thing that they're meant to bring. And so if you feel like you can't find it, just keep going and do not stop until you find that thing that kind of lights a fire in your soul. And I want to say too, to that same kind of societal standard that we have, that there's no timeline to when you find your gift. There's so many examples of people that have found their gift in the later stages of life and still been able to be just as successful as someone who might have known what their gift was since they were
Mm.
young. And so don't put artificial pressure to find that thing and figure your whole life out at some arbitrary timeline. Give
Mhm.
yourself time and space to play with different things and explore different things and find what your gift is on a timeline that is right for you. And I would say the third piece to that is that your gift can change. You can have multiple gifts.
Love it.
You might have one gift today and realize that it's actually not what, ignites the fire in me anymore. Maybe it's something else, or maybe it's not the gift that I was told that I have, and you discover a new gift in yourself. And so don't hold yourself to one thing either. Life is ever flow and always changing. So the gift can change as you change as a person.
Love it.
And then if all of that still doesn't work, honestly, something that's always stuck with me is that whatever angers you is your assignment.
Mm,
And so that's a really good way to find what you're put here to fix.
I love it.
Figure out what frustrates you, what makes you angry when you see it, what really is something that you want to see be different. And then it's your assignment to go solve that, find a solution, create a way to make it better. And that is a gift because other people might walk right past that thing that frustrates you and not think anything of it. But you are assigned to be driven and motivated to figure that thing out. And so I think a lot of time things that frustrate us can also be our gift to actually go out there and create a solution to.
I love it. Oh my gosh, I love it. And I think we're gonna close it there because I think that what you said, resonates with me, and I'm sure it's going to resonate with whomever is listening to this because the idea of don't stop, 100%. I agree. Just keep going, right? The idea that society, again, for your number two, when you talked about this whole idea of the time frames, like there's no rush. Let's be patient, right? Take our time. Like
Mm-hmm.
society says that you need to, by 30 have this, by 40 you should be this, by 25 you should be, you are responsible for your own destination, your own
Mm-hmm.
destiny, right? So as long as we stay within that and like you said, don't stop, right? Keep pushing forward. I think that's the best way for us to do what we have to do. And I love the last part of when you talked about the idea of finding something that angers you, right? Because it is true that that's usually where most advocates start. It's when
Mm-hmm.
they see a problem and they feel like, you know what? I don't like what's happening, so I need to figure out a way to change it.
Mm-hmm.
Today, I attended the Business Finance Forum for the City of Toronto, helping businesses, with financing. And one of the speakers, her name was Natasha Ferguson. She's from Ethel Fox Contracting, I believe it's called. She's the first female Black contractor in all of Canada. So,
Wow.
it's one of, and here it was, she saw a problem. She felt she fit the mold, that she fit the mold in a sense that she liked being in contract, like she liked doing contracts, construction work. And yet she didn't see herself there. So she decided to do this, and now she's like the face of Home Depot. So I was like,
There you
hey,
go.
there it goes.
Yeah.
And, and it doesn't matter about your age because sometimes it happens later on. Not that she's older or I'm not sure her age, but just in
Mm-hmm.
general, when we're thinking about that idea that you mentioned about the timeline, there is no timeline, right? It's about just finding what you love to do and then doing it. So yeah,
Absolutely.
thank you so much. I love it. Well, we like to end it with a little fun stuff because, that's just me. I love doing fun stuff. So this is called Wonderfly. So things that you're going to have to think about on the fly. And it's me wondering about certain things. And like I mentioned before, your pictures, everything will be in our description at the below for Johvonna and all of her information there because I know many people are going to want to connect with you because, like I said, I saw your pictures and I fell in love with them. I mean, truly, they need to be You should have a show. You should have a show. I was just thinking, oh my goodness, you should actually do a show. I think you would do amazing. But anyways, okay, stay focused, no problem.
One day, one day.
Yeah, one day, one day. All right, so I'm gonna put on my timer and we'll just do about 30 seconds. So you have a couple of seconds to answer.
Okay.
No pressure, no pressure. No pressure, but a little bit of pressure. No
Yeah.
pressure, but you have 30 seconds. That's all, but it's just fun stuff. Okay, so I'm gonna say, I wonder, and I'm gonna ask a question, and you just gotta
Okay.
think of whatever comes to mind. It's just, silly questions. Are you ready? All right, here we
Um,
go. I wonder, what does a cardinal bird call sound like? What do you
not what I was expecting at all. Um, oh my goodness. I have no clue. Do you want me to make the sound? Do you
No,
want me
yeah,
to
well,
do
I mean, it would have been fun. I would have liked to see your bird call still, but that's okay. Okay, are we ready? I
My
want,
camp days are like way too far behind me for that.
oh
Like,
my gosh, our 30 seconds is up already. That's okay. No timer then.
okay.
I wonder, what do you think a robot would do for fun?
Oh, for fun, a robot would like write code or like optimize something, like make something better for no reason, something that doesn't need to be improved. It would
Nothing.
like try to improve
Okay,
it or
okay. Sounds good. Sounds good. All right. I wonder, what song you last listened to from your playlist?
Oh, that's a good question. I love music. I've been listening to Banks' latest album, which is called Three, on repeat for some reason. It's just been my vibe the past couple weeks.
Okay, so
Um,
Banks.
Banks, yeah, she's kind of like an edgy, I'd say like more like indie pop and R&B artist.
Okay, okay.
And I've just had that album on repeat like the past 3 days.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Okay, and I'm gonna go
Mhm.
look it up. I gotta go look it up. All right. I wonder what country you liked best out of all of the countries that you went to see.
Oh man, that's a hard question.
I know. I knew that one was gonna be
Um,
tough for you. I knew. I knew.
I counted the other day. I've been to 30 countries to date so far.
Wow, that
And
is
so they're all
amazing.
so different. But oh, this is such an easy answer. Like this is
Okay.
a way. But
Okay, how about your top three?
Jamaica is the best. Jamaica is just
Mm,
food, vibes, people, water, like can't be beat.
you're good to go?
Um, I actually really love China and I also really love India. That's where I
Okay.
really want to go back for a longer period
So
of
your
time.
top three then. Okay. So Jamaica, India, China, which all works out for us because a lot of people immigrated from China to Jamaica. Some people
Yeah,
went to, oh, so it works out. Okay.
yeah,
All right. A couple more, two more actually. I
yeah.
wonder, what toppings do you put on your burger? And then I realized, do you even eat meat?
I do, I
Oh,
do.
okay, okay.
Burger, oh man, onions, tomatoes, lettuce, mustard,
Okay,
ketchup, no relish, no mayo. That's a
okay.
no.
So there's no
Um,
fries, no chips, no. I was thinking of,
Sometimes I'll take them off the side and like stick them in the burger. I'm not gonna lie, that does happen,
okay,
but not as standard topping.
okay, okay. Sounds good. Sounds good. Last question. I wonder, what is your favorite ingredient for a smoothie?
Oh, I had a smoothie this morning. Um, I like to try different ones, but my favorite ingredient that's like a staple is banana. If
Mm,
banana is not in a smoothie, I just feel like something's missing. It's kind of
right.
like the glue that keeps all the other fruit together. So that's mandatory
Yeah,
for
I
sure.
agree. I have to say, I agree with you. Well, Johvonna Murray-Bradshaw, thank you so much for taking the time to sit and chat with me. It was really great getting to know more about you, and I'm really hoping all the best for more of your adventures and, endeavors and, carry on with your engineering amazingness. And I'm so happy that we were finally able to do this because I really hope and pray that our young people are able to watch this and watch you and be inspired the way I've been inspired, just to do more, right? Because I think it's important. And I love the fact that, you incorporate your work with doing charitable work and doing just work for everyone, right? And, that feel good work, right? And I love when you talked about that idea of, loving what you do and having a passion for it. And you clearly do have a passion for it. I have to ask then, as a closing question before you go, what's next?
That's a great question. And honestly, first of all, also thank you so much, Nicole, for this. This has been great. I'd love to just talk to you and get to know you a bit more. And the work you're doing is also so inspiring. This is so important, sharing stories with people so that we make sure the next generation is coming up better than the one before. And even more so in the Black community where, those voices and lessons don't always get propagated the same way. So thank you for the work you're doing. It does not go unnoticed. And this has been so awesome. But yeah, for me, what's to be continuing to look for those amazing projects that have huge impact internationally.
I love it.
So finding projects where I can use that project management, be a strong leader, working on strategy, but making sure what I'm delivering is an impact that actually can change somebody's life and do it for the people who need it the most around the world. And so that's kind of what I'm targeting for coming up next. I have some exciting things on the horizon.
All right. I love it. Well, thank you so much. Everyone, thank you so much for joining me and talking to my lovely Johvonna. I just want to leave everyone with I love this quote. I know it's not the best quote, but I love it anyways. Is, haste makes waste, but also remind yourself that when we're thinking about haste makes waste, it's not just about rushing through traffic. Okay. It's about rushing decisions that you're making in your life. Okay. So, when you're thinking about, that feeling of like what Johvonna mentioned, there's no timeline. Okay. So there's no need to rush. Just take your time because haste makes waste. Sometimes we're rushing thinking that we need to appeal to other people, or we need to, our parents are stressing us out and feeling like, oh my goodness, I want to do this for my parents. I want to do this for other people. Stop and think. Haste makes waste. And remember that you're doing what you're doing always for you. Okay. It's awesome. Thanks, everyone. Have a great night.
You guys. Have a good evening.